The ceramic plate exploded against the stainless steel wall with a sound like a gunshot. Tyler Durden, yes, his parents had actually named him that, didn't flinch as white porcelain shards rained down around his rubber boots. He kept his hands submerged in the scalding dishwater, scrubbing methodically while the kitchen erupted in chaos behind him. You call this seared? My grandmother could cook better than this, and she's been dead for 10 years. Adrian Balboa's voice cut through the clatter of pans and the hiss of gas burners like a chainsaw through silk. The CEO of Balboa Luxury Dining Group, 7 high-end restaurants across 3 states, stood in the center of the kitchen, his perfectly tailored suit somehow still immaculate despite the rage radiating off him in waves. In his hand, another plate. In front of him, a chef who'd worked there for 3 months. A record, recently. Tyler glanced at the chef. Emma something, he thought. Her face had gone from red to white in the span of a heartbeat. He'd seen that look before. 23 times in the 8 months he'd worked here, to be exact. She'd be gone by tomorrow. Get out, Adrian hissed, his voice dropping to something more terrifying than the shouting. You're done. Don't bother coming back. Emma's hands trembled as she untied her apron. No one spoke. No one moved. The line cooks kept their heads down. The sous chef suddenly found something fascinating in his prep notes, and the servers who'd been waiting for orders pressed themselves against the far wall like they could disappear into it. Hey there, beautiful people. I'm so glad you're here for this story. One that's going to show you what happens when silence finally breaks. When someone who's been watching everything decides enough is enough. Where are you watching from tonight? Drop your city in the comments. I always love seeing where my amazing community is tuning in from. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? Hit that button because trust me, you're going to want to see how this unfolds. Stories like this remind us that sometimes the quietest voice carries the loudest truth. The door swung shut behind Emma. She was the 4th person this week, the 17th this month. Tyler returned to his dishes, but his jaw was tight. Through the circular window of the dishwashing station, he could see into the dining room. All soft lighting and crystal glasses, customers paying $200 a plate, completely unaware that their meal had just caused someone to lose their livelihood. What are you looking at? Tyler's head snapped up. Adrian stood 5 feet away, his dark eyes locked on Tyler with an intensity that had made grown men stammer. At 42, Adrian Balboa was everything the business magazines loved to write about. Self-made millionaire, culinary visionary, the man who'd turned his first struggling restaurant into an empire in just under a decade. What they wrote less about, but everyone in the industry knew, was that he was also a tyrant, a perfectionist whose standards existed somewhere in the stratosphere, impossible to reach and fatal to miss. Nothing, sir, Tyler said, his voice steady. He was 26, but looked younger, with dark hair that fell into his eyes and the kind of quiet presence that made people forget he was there, which was exactly how he preferred it. Then get back to work. Adrian turned away, barking orders at the line cooks, who scrambled to execute them with the precision of soldiers under fire. The kitchen returned to its controlled chaos, but the tension remained, a live wire humming through the air, waiting to spark again. Tyler's hands moved on autopilot. Spray, scrub, rack, repeat. But his mind was somewhere else, cataloging everything he'd witnessed in 8 months of near invisibility. The talented pastry chef fired for using the wrong vanilla extract. The hostess terminated because she'd smiled too much and made the restaurant seem unprofessional. The sous chef who'd had a panic attack in the walk-in freezer and quit on the spot, leaving behind a decade of culinary training because his mental health couldn't survive another day under Adrian's regime. HR couldn't keep up. The restaurant's Glassdoor rating was a catastrophic 2.1 stars. 3 managers had resigned in 6 months. Yet somehow, the restaurants kept getting Michelin stars, kept getting written up in glossy magazines, kept making money hand over fist. Because Adrian Balboa's food was, objectively, incredible. But at what cost? Tyler loaded another rack of dishes, the question churning in his mind like the industrial washer beside him. He thought about the envelope in his locker, the one he'd been carrying for 3 weeks now, waiting for the right moment. Or maybe just waiting for the courage. Behind him, a pot clattered to the floor. Someone cursed. Adrian's head whipped around like a predator catching a scent. Who did that? Silence. I said, who did that? Tyler's hands tightened on the edge of the sink. Not tonight, he thought. Please, not tonight. He needed this job. He needed the paycheck, the health insurance, the routine that kept him anchored when everything else threatened to spiral. But as he watched a young line cook, couldn't be more than 22, step forward with terror in her eyes, something inside Tyler shifted. Something that had been building for 8 months, for years before that, for a lifetime of watching people with power destroy people without it. The line cook opened her mouth to apologize, and Tyler made a decision that would change everything. Drop a comment below if you've ever worked for someone like this, and stay tuned, because what happens next is going to shock you. Tyler's voice cut through the kitchen before the line cook could speak. It was me. Every head turned. Adrian's eyes narrowed, scanning Tyler like he was trying to remember who this person even was. The dishwasher. The invisible one. The guy who'd been here for how long? Adrian clearly had no idea. You? Adrian's tone carried disbelief and something else. Irritation at being interrupted by someone so insignificant. Yes, sir. I bumped into her carrying a rack. My fault. Tyler's voice didn't waver. He stepped out from behind the dishwashing station, still wearing his rubber gloves, water dripping onto the tile floor. The line cook, her name tag read Sophie, stared at him with wide eyes, shaking her head slightly. Don't, she mouthed. But Tyler had already committed. Adrian studied him for a long moment, then waved his hand dismissively. Watch where you're going. Get back to your station. Just like that, it was over. Adrian returned to expediting orders, and the kitchen exhaled collectively. Sophie caught Tyler's eye as he returned to the dish pit, mouthing a silent thank you that he acknowledged with the barest nod. But something had shifted. Tyler felt it in his chest, a crack in the armor he'd built around himself, the one that had kept him quiet and safe and completely alone for the past 3 years. Tyler had moved to the city 8 months ago with 2 duffel bags, a sleeping bag, and $600 to his name. Before that, he didn't talk about before that. Not to the other kitchen staff who occasionally asked where he was from. Not to his landlord when he'd rented the studio apartment in the building with the broken elevator. Not to anyone. What they didn't know, Tyler had a degree in business management from a decent state school. He'd graduated with honors, had been on track for a corporate career, had a fiancé and an apartment and a future that looked stable and bright. What they really didn't know, 3 years ago, his younger sister Mara had died. Overdose. Fentanyl-laced pills she'd bought from someone she trusted. She'd been 21, brilliant, funny, and struggling with demons no one in their family had recognized until it was too late. The grief had dismantled Tyler's life piece by piece. The fiancé left when he couldn't get out of bed for 2 weeks. The job offer was rescinded when he failed to show up for his start date. His parents, drowning in their own grief, had grown distant, each of them isolated in separate oceans of loss. So Tyler had drifted, moved cities, took whatever work he could find, landed in dish pits and kitchens because the work was straightforward, the expectations clear, and no one asked questions about who you were or where you came from. You showed up, you did the work, you went home. Simple, safe, numb. The envelope in his locker contained a letter from a therapist, his 4th attempt at finding help. An appointment scheduled for next week. He'd missed the previous 3. Something always came up, or more accurately, his anxiety always won. 2 hours later, after the dinner rush had ended and the kitchen had been scrubbed down, Tyler was shouldering on his jacket when Sophie approached him by the employee exit. Hey, she said, her voice soft. She was young, maybe 23, with bright purple streaks in her dark hair and a dusting of flowers still on her cheek. Thank you for earlier. You didn't have to do that. Tyler shrugged. It was nothing. It wasn't nothing. I need this job. My mom's medical bills. She trailed off, then seemed to catch herself. Anyway, thank you. I'm Sophie, by the way. Sophie Ripley. Tyler. I know. Tyler Durden, right? Like Fight Club. She smiled. Your parents must have a sense of humor. Something like that. Tyler didn't return the smile, but his tone wasn't unkind. Sophie shifted her weight, clearly wanting to say something else. Look, I've been here 3 months, and I've seen a lot of people come and go. But you're different. You actually give a damn, even though you pretend not to. Tyler's hand tightened on the door handle. I just wash dishes, Sophie. Sure. She didn't sound convinced. Well, a few of us are grabbing coffee tomorrow morning before the lunch shift. At Marco's down the street. If you want to actually talk to other humans for once, you're welcome to join. Before Tyler could decline, footsteps echoed in the hallway. Both of them turned to see Adrian Balboa emerging from his office, leather briefcase in hand, phone pressed to his ear. "Don't care what the distributor says. I want those scallops or I want a new distributor." End of discussion. He ended the call, his eyes flicking over Tyler and Sophie with barely concealed annoyance. "Don't you two have homes to go to?" "Just leaving, Mr. Balboa," Sophie said quickly, pushing through the exit door. Tyler made to follow, but Adrian's voice stopped him. "Dishwasher." Tyler turned. "Sir." Adrian studied him with those dark, calculating eyes. Up close, Tyler could see the exhaustion beneath the polished exterior, shadows under his eyes, tension in his jaw, the faint tremor in his hand that suggested too much caffeine and not enough sleep. "You've been here 8 months, Adrian said. It wasn't a question. "Yes, sir." "Never missed a shift. Never complained. Never caused problems." Adrian tilted his head slightly. "Why?" The question caught Tyler off guard. "I need the job. Everyone needs a job. But you." Adrian seemed to be searching for something, some angle to understand this person who'd willingly taken the blame for someone else's mistake. "You're educated. I can tell by the way you talk, the way you carry yourself. So why are you washing dishes in my kitchen?" Tyler felt his chest tighten. The honest answer was too big, too raw, too much to explain to a stranger, especially this stranger who viewed people as either assets or obstacles. "Because it's honest work," Tyler finally said. "And because some of us don't have the luxury of being picky." Something flickered in Adrian's expression, surprise, maybe, or recognition. But it vanished as quickly as it appeared, replaced by his usual cool mask. "Get out of here," Adrian said, turning away. "See you tomorrow." Tyler left, but as he walked down the dark street toward the bus stop, he couldn't shake the feeling that something had begun tonight. Something that couldn't be taken back. Behind him, through the restaurant's lit windows, Adrian Balboa stood alone in his empire, surrounded by perfection, drowning in success. And utterly, completely isolated. If you've ever felt invisible at work, drop a yes in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe because this story is about to take a turn you won't see coming. The coffee at Marco's was terrible, but the company was surprisingly decent. Tyler sat at the corner of the table, nursing his second cup while Sophie and 3 other staff members, David, a line cook with a deadpan sense of humor, Maria, a server who'd been with Balboa's the longest at 18 months, and Chris, the sous chef who somehow managed to survive Adrian's daily tirades, swapped war stories about their boss. "Last month, he made someone cry because they folded napkins wrong," Maria said, stirring sugar into her espresso. "Napkins." The woman had a PhD in hospitality management. "He threw a bain-marie at my head once," David added casually. "Missed by 3 inches. "That's assault," Sophie said, eyes wide. "That's Tuesday," Chris corrected, his weathered face resigned. "Look, I've worked for difficult chefs before. Ego comes with the territory. But Adrian? He's something else. It's like he's at war with everyone around him, including himself." Tyler listened, saying nothing, but his mind was cataloging every detail. The pattern was clear. Adrian Balboa wasn't just demanding. He was self-destructive, burning through staff so quickly that the restaurants operated in a constant state of barely controlled chaos. "Why do you stay?" Tyler asked Chris. The sous chef considered the question. "Because when he's not exploding, when he's actually cooking, he's a genius. I've learned more in 18 months than I did in culinary school. But the cost." He shook his head. "I don't know how much longer I can pay it." Tyler's phone buzzed. A reminder, therapy appointment in 4 days. He silenced it. "What about you?" Sophie turned to Tyler. "You've seen everything. What do you think?" Tyler chose his words carefully. "I think he's a man who's forgotten what it's like to be human." The table went quiet. Then Maria laughed, sharp and bitter. "That's the most accurate thing anyone's ever said about him." The incident happened 3 nights later, during the Friday dinner rush. The restaurant was at full capacity, every table filled, a waiting list 30 names deep, 3 food critics rumored to be dining anonymously. The kitchen was a pressure cooker, and Adrian was everywhere at once, tasting, adjusting, shouting corrections that grew increasingly harsh as the night wore on. Tyler worked in his usual rhythm, clearing tables of dishes as fast as the servers could bring them, maintaining the flow that kept the kitchen functional. He'd just loaded another rack when he heard Adrian's voice escalate to a register that made everyone freeze. What is this? Tyler looked through the window. Adrian stood at the expo station, holding a plate of Wagyu beef with truffle reduction, the restaurant's signature dish, $300 per order. His face had gone from red to purple. This is overcooked. Overcooked. He slammed the plate down so hard it cracked. Do you have any idea who ordered this? Do you have any idea? The line cook who'd prepared it, a man named Robert who'd been there 6 months, reliable and skilled, stepped forward. Chef, I followed the temp exactly. Don't give me excuses. Adrian grabbed another plate, this one heading out to a different table, and examined it with the intensity of a prosecutor finding evidence. This plating is sloppy. The garnish is wilted. Are you trying to destroy my reputation? Chef, please. Get out. Adrian hurled the plate. It missed Robert's head by inches and shattered against the wall, sending beef and truffle sauce across the pristine white tiles. You're fired. All of you are fired if this is the quality I can expect. The kitchen had gone completely silent. Even the ventilation system seemed to hold its breath. That's when Tyler saw it. Adrian's hand was shaking uncontrollably. Not with rage, with something else. The CEO gripped the edge of the counter, and for just a moment, his expression wasn't anger, but something closer to panic. Then Adrian seemed to notice everyone staring. His face hardened. What are you all looking at? Get back to work. We have 50 orders backed up and critics in the dining room. Move. But nobody moved. The breaking point had been reached. Chris, the sous chef, carefully removed his apron. I can't do this anymore. What? Adrian's voice was dangerous. I quit, Adrian. I'm done. Chris's voice was steady but sad. This isn't a kitchen. It's a torture chamber. And I don't care how good the food is. Nothing is worth this. You walk out on a Friday night. You'll never work in this city again. I'll make sure of it. Then I guess I'm moving cities. Chris nodded to the other cooks. Anyone who wants to finish the shift, I respect that. Anyone who wants to leave, I'll understand. For a moment, it seemed like the entire kitchen might walk out. Maria, the server, set down her tray. David, the line cook, turned off his burner. Sophie looked torn, her eyes darting between the exit and her station. Tyler felt something rising in his chest, that same feeling from 3 nights ago, but stronger now. The envelope in his locker. His sister's face. All the times he'd stayed silent when he should have spoken. All the times fear had won. He stepped out from the dish pit. Mr. Balboa, Tyler said, his voice cutting through the tension. Can I speak with you? Privately. Every eye turned to him. Adrian looked at Tyler like he'd lost his mind. Are you serious right now? In the middle of dinner service? Yes, sir. I'm serious. Tyler's heart hammered against his ribs, but his voice didn't shake. 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking. Adrian stared at him for a long moment. The kitchen held its collective breath. Then, inexplicably, Adrian nodded once and gestured toward his office. 5 minutes. And this better be worth it, dishwasher. Tyler followed Adrian out of the kitchen, aware of every stunned face watching him go. Sophie caught his eye, mouthing, "What are you doing?" He didn't have an answer. All he knew was that someone had to say something, and somehow, impossibly, that someone had become him. As the office door closed behind them, Adrian crossed his arms and fixed Tyler with a glare that had made Fortune 500 executives stammer. Talk. And Tyler realized he had absolutely no idea what he was going to say. Comment below. Would you have the courage to confront your boss like this? And smash that subscribe button. What happens next will leave you speechless. Tyler stood in Adrian Balboa's office, surrounded by awards, framed magazine covers, and photos of the CEO shaking hands with celebrities. The man himself sat behind a massive desk, fingers drumming impatiently on the mahogany surface. Your 5 minutes started 30 seconds ago, Adrian said. Tyler took a breath. Then another. In his mind, he saw Mara's face, the way she'd looked at him the last time they'd talked, 3 days before she died. Someone needs to say something. She'd told him about her own struggles. Why doesn't anyone ever just say something? You're killing your own business, Tyler said. Adrian's eyebrows shot up. Excuse me. You heard me. You're hemorrhaging staff. Your Glassdoor rating is destroying your ability to recruit talent. And you're one viral TikTok away from every culinary school graduate in the country knowing to avoid your restaurants like the plague. Tyler's voice gained strength as he spoke. You just lost your sous chef in the middle of Friday's service. How many more can you afford to lose before this whole operation collapses? Adrian leaned back in his chair, his expression unreadable. You have 3 minutes left, and so far you're just telling me things I already know. Get to the point. The point is why. Tyler stepped closer to the desk. Why are you like this? You're brilliant. Everyone says so. Your food is incredible. You built an empire from nothing. So why are you so determined to destroy it by treating everyone around you like they're disposable? Because they are disposable, Adrian said coldly. Everyone is replaceable. That's business. That's loneliness, Tyler shot back. And you know it. The words hung in the air between them. Adrian's jaw tightened, but he didn't speak. Tyler pressed on. I've watched you for 8 months. You come in before everyone else and leave after everyone's gone. You eat alone in your office. You don't have friends here. You have subordinates. And you push them away the moment they get too close to actually knowing you. You don't know anything about me, Adrian said, but his voice had lost some of its edge. I know what I see. I know that hand tremor isn't from anger, it's from exhaustion. I know you're running on maybe 4 hours of sleep and enough espresso to kill a horse. I know that panic I saw in your eyes out there. That wasn't about overcooked beef. That was about something much bigger. Adrian stood abruptly, his chair rolling back. This conversation is over. Is it? Tyler didn't move. Because your entire kitchen just watched you have a meltdown. Half of them are ready to walk. And you've got critics in the dining room who are going to write about more than just the food if this place falls apart tonight. Then I'll hire new staff. I always do. And how long before they quit too? How long before the word gets out that Adrian Balboa is impossible to work for? How long before the Michelin stars don't matter because no one talented is willing to sacrifice their mental health for your approval? Tyler's voice softened. How long before you're completely alone? Adrian turned away, staring out the window at the city lights. His reflection in the glass looked haunted. Why do you care? Adrian asked quietly. You're just the dishwasher. Because I know what it's like to push everyone away, Tyler said. I know what it's like to think you're protecting yourself when really you're just building a prison. And I know what happens when you realize too late that the walls got too high and nobody's coming to break them down. Silence stretched between them. Outside the office, Tyler could hear the muffled chaos of the kitchen trying to function without leadership. I had a sister, Tyler heard himself say. Words he hadn't spoken aloud in 3 years. Mara. She was brilliant, funny, full of life. She struggled with depression, anxiety, addiction, all the things we don't talk about because we're supposed to be strong, supposed to have it together. His voice cracked slightly. She died 3 years ago. Overdose. And you know what the worst part is? I saw the signs. I saw her pulling away, saw her struggling. But I didn't say anything because I thought she needed space. Thought she'd ask for help if she really needed it. Adrian turned around. His expression shifted into something Tyler couldn't quite read. I've spent 3 years wishing I'd said something, Tyler continued. Wishing I'd pushed harder, cared louder, refused to let her disappear into her pain alone. So when I see someone else drowning, even if they're drowning in success instead of addiction, I can't stay silent anymore. I won't. I'm not drowning, Adrian said, but the words lacked conviction. Aren't you? When's the last time you took a day off? When's the last time you had a conversation that wasn't about work? When's the last time someone asked how you were doing and you gave them an honest answer? Tyler paused. When's the last time you were happy, Mr. Balboa? Adrian sank back into his chair, suddenly looking older than his 42 years. Happiness is a luxury I can't afford. I have investors, employees, standards to maintain. You have nothing if you burn it all down, Tyler interrupted. And that's exactly what you're doing. One explosion at a time. A knock at the door broke the moment. Maria poked her head in, her face worried. Mr. Balboa? The critics are asking about the delay on their entrees. And 3 more line cooks just left. Adrian closed his eyes briefly, a muscle in his jaw working. Tyler made a decision. Tell them the chef is dealing with an equipment malfunction. Give them a complimentary champagne service. I'll handle the kitchen. You? Adrian's eyes snapped open. You're a dishwasher. I'm a guy with a business degree who's been watching your operation for 8 months and knows exactly how it runs, Tyler said. Let me help. Let someone help for once in your life. Adrian stared at him for a long moment. Then, incredibly, he nodded. Don't make me regret this, Adrian said. Tyler was already moving toward the door. The only thing you'll regret is waiting this long to ask. As he headed back to the kitchen, Sophie grabbed his arm. Tyler, what happened in there? Something that should have happened a long time ago, Tyler said. Now let's save this dinner service. Drop a comment if you've ever had to step up when no one else would. And don't forget to subscribe because the next part reveals secrets that change everything. Tyler stood at the expo station, the same spot where Adrian had his meltdown 20 minutes earlier. Around him, the remaining kitchen staff watched with a mixture of skepticism and desperate hope. Okay, listen up, Tyler said, his voice carrying over the kitchen noise. We have 37 orders backed up, 3 critics still waiting, and half our crew just walked out. We can either panic or we can execute. Who's with me? Sophie raised her hand first. Then David. Maria nodded from the server station. Even Robert, the cook Adrian had fired, stepped back to his station. What do you need us to do? Sophie asked. Tyler had spent 8 months watching this kitchen operate. He knew every station, every timing, every bottleneck. Sophie, you're on guard, Major. Salads and cold apps. David, you take the fish station. Robert, despite being fired, you're back on meat. I'll run expo and help wherever we're drowning. You know how to cook? David asked, surprised. My mom owned a restaurant, Tyler said, the first personal detail he'd shared with anyone here. I grew up in kitchens. Now move. The kitchen exploded into choreographed chaos. Tyler called out orders, checked temperatures, adjusted plating. His hands moved with a confidence that surprised even him. Muscle memory from a life before grief had dismantled everything. Picking up table 12. Sophie, where are those salads? Coming. David, that salmon needs 30 more seconds. Robert, beautiful sear on the Wagyu, send it. Adrian appeared in the doorway, watching silently. Tyler saw him, but didn't stop, didn't acknowledge him. Right now, the food mattered. The people mattered. Everything else could wait. 40 minutes later, the backlog was clear. The critics' meals had gone out perfectly. The dining room had settled into satisfied murmurs instead of impatient whispers. Tyler leaned against the counter, adrenaline still coursing through his veins. Sophie handed him a bottle of water. That was insane, she said, grinning. Where have you been hiding all that? In the dish pit, apparently, Tyler said, managing a small smile. Adrian approached slowly, his expression unreadable. My office. Now. Tyler followed him back, prepared for anger or accusations. Instead, Adrian closed the door and turned to face him with something that looked almost like respect. You saved tonight, Adrian said simply. We all did. Your staff is more capable than you give them credit for. Clearly, Adrian moved to a cabinet, pulled out 2 glasses and a bottle of expensive scotch. He poured 2 fingers in each glass, handed one to Tyler. Who are you really, Tyler Durden? Tyler took the glass, but didn't drink. Does it matter? It does now. Adrian sat on the edge of his desk. You have a business degree. You grew up in restaurants. You can run a kitchen under pressure. Yet you've spent 8 months washing dishes without saying a word. What? Tyler stared into the amber liquid. The question he'd been avoiding for 3 years, the one his therapist had asked, the one his parents had stopped asking when he wouldn't answer. Because I was hiding, Tyler said finally. From myself. From expectations. From the person I used to be before everything fell apart. Your sister. My sister. My fiancée who left. My career that evaporated. My family that fractured. Tyler set the glass down. I came here to disappear. The dish pit was perfect for that. Nobody sees you. Nobody asks questions. Nobody expects anything beyond clean plates. But tonight you stepped forward, Adrian said quietly. What changed? Tyler met his eyes. I watched you have a panic attack and recognized myself 3 years ago, right before I lost everything that mattered because I was too proud to admit I was drowning. He paused. I couldn't watch someone else go down the same path without at least trying to throw them a rope. Adrian was silent for a long moment, turning his glass in his hands. Then he spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. My wife left me 2 years ago. Tyler's breath caught. This wasn't what he'd expected. Elena, Adrian continued, staring at nothing. We met in culinary school. She was my partner in every sense, in the kitchen, in business, in life. When I started the first restaurant, she was there. Every decision, every risk, every success. She understood the obsession, the drive, because she had it too. He drank, the scotch burning down his throat. Then we got pregnant. Suddenly, she wanted to slow down, spend more time at home, be present for the baby. I couldn't understand it. We were building something incredible. Why stop now? Adrian's voice cracked slightly. So I didn't stop. I kept pushing, expanding, chasing stars and success. And she kept asking me to be present, to choose family over work, to remember why we started this in the first place. Tyler felt ice forming in his stomach. The baby was stillborn at 33 weeks, Adrian said, each word precise and devastating. A daughter. We'd named her Isabella. Elena went into labor, and I was in New York, finalizing the deal for restaurant number 5. I didn't make it back in time. Adrian. She held our dead daughter alone. Adrian continued, tears now streaming silently down his face. And when I finally got there, 12 hours later, she looked at me like I was a stranger. She left 3 months later. Said I'd chosen ambition over everything that mattered. Said I'd rather be successful than be human. The office felt too small, too full of grief. I threw myself into work even harder after that, Adrian said. Built more restaurants, earned more stars, made more money. Because if I stopped, if I slowed down even for a second, I'd have to face what I'd lost. Who I'd become. The fact that she was right. I'd sacrificed everything real on the altar of success. He looked at Tyler with raw, haunted eyes. So I became the person everyone fears instead of the person anyone could love. Because fear is easier than vulnerability. Control is easier than connection. And cruelty is easier than admitting I'm so goddamn broken that I don't know how to be anything else. Tyler set down his glass and did something that surprised them both. He walked over and gripped Adrian's shoulder. You're not broken, Tyler said. You're grieving. There's a difference. Adrian's composure finally shattered. He buried his face in his hands and wept. Deep, wrenching sobs that sounded like they'd been held back for years. And Tyler stood there. This man he'd watched terrorize dozens of people and saw only another human drowning in loss. If this story is hitting different, drop a heart emoji in the comments. And subscribe, because what comes next will restore your faith in second chances. The weekend passed in an uneasy truce. Adrian didn't come to the restaurant Saturday or Sunday, the first time in 18 months he'd taken consecutive days off. Tyler worked his shifts, but something had shifted in the kitchen. Word had spread about Friday night, about Tyler running Expo, about the confrontation nobody had heard, but everyone sensed had changed something fundamental. On Monday, Tyler arrived to find a note in his locker, my office. 4 p.m. Up. The day crawled by with agonizing slowness. Sophie kept shooting him worried glances. Maria pulled him aside during lunch prep. Whatever happens, she said, thank you for trying. We all saw what you did. At 3:58 p.m., Tyler knocked on Adrian's office door. Come in. Adrian looked different, still tired, but somehow lighter. He gestured to a chair across from his desk, and Tyler sat. I've made a decision, Adrian said without preamble. I'm promoting you to general manager. Tyler blinked. What? You ran that kitchen better than anyone has in months. You see the operation clearly, understand the people, know how to lead under pressure. Adrian slid a folder across the desk. Salary, benefits, responsibilities, it's all there. You'd oversee kitchen operations, staff management, quality control. Be the bridge between me and everyone else. Tyler opened the folder. The salary was triple what he made as a dishwasher. Life-changing money. Stability. Purpose. Everything he'd told himself he didn't want. I need an answer by tomorrow, Adrian said. The position starts immediately. Tyler closed the folder. Can I ask you something first? Go ahead. What are you going to do differently? Tyler asked. Because promoting me doesn't fix the core problem. You can't just delegate away the work of becoming a better person. Adrian's expression hardened slightly. I'm taking steps. I scheduled time with a therapist. I'm going to work on my communication style. That's good, Tyler said carefully. But what about the staff you've already hurt? Robert, the cook you fired Friday, are you bringing him back? Chris, the sous chef who quit. Have you called him? What about the 17 people who left this month alone? Some bridges are burned, Tyler. I can't fix everything. But you can try, Tyler pressed. Real change isn't just about therapy sessions and anger management. It's about accountability, amends, showing people through action that you're different. Adrian stood, walking to the window. Is that what you did? After your sister died, after you lost everything, did you make amends? The question hit like a physical blow. No, Tyler admitted quietly. I ran. I'm still running. Then maybe we're both cowards in our own way, Adrian said, not unkindly. You hide in dish pits. I hide behind anger. Neither of us has actually faced what we're afraid of. Tyler felt the truth of it settle in his chest. The therapy appointment in 3 days, he'd probably cancel it again. The envelope in his locker felt like it weighed 1,000 pounds. Take the job, Adrian said, turning back to him. Help me rebuild this place properly. We can figure out the rest as we go. Tyler stood, the folder in his hands. I need to think about it. Fair enough. Adrian extended his hand. For what it's worth, thank you. For Friday. For seeing me. Tyler shook his hand and left, his mind churning. That night, Tyler sat on the floor of his tiny apartment, the job offer spread out in front of him next to the therapy appointment card. His phone buzzed, his mother calling for the 3rd time that week. He let it go to voicemail. The apartment was sparse, nearly empty. He'd been here 8 months and never unpacked beyond the essentials. Because unpacking meant staying, and staying meant admitting this was his life now instead of just a temporary stop on the way to what? He didn't even know anymore. His phone buzzed again. This time, a text from Sophie. Coffee tomorrow before shift? Need to talk to you about something important. Then another text, from a number he didn't recognize. This is Chris Reynolds, former sous chef at Balboa's. Got your number from Maria. Heard what you did Friday. Would like to talk if you're willing. There are things you should know about Adrian that nobody tells. Tyler stared at the message, his stomach knotting. Things nobody tells. That sounded ominous. He texted back, call me. 5 minutes later, his phone rang. Tyler? Chris Reynolds. Thanks for calling. Chris's voice was measured, careful. Look, I don't know how much you know about Adrian's history, but there's a reason people are both terrified of him and reluctant to report him. I'm listening. 2 years ago, a line cook tried to sue him for workplace harassment. Within a week, her car was vandalized, she started getting threatening calls, and every restaurant in a 3-state radius mysteriously had no positions available when she applied. Chris paused. I'm not saying Adrian ordered any of that directly, but he has connections. Investors with deep pockets and questionable ethics. People who protect their assets aggressively. Tyler felt cold. Why are you telling me this? Because you're about to get pulled into his orbit, if you haven't been already. And you seem like a decent guy who actually cares. I'd hate to see you get hurt, or worse, become complicit in something you can't walk away from. He offered me a promotion. General manager. Chris laughed bitterly. Of course he did. That's how it works. He finds someone capable and decent, elevates them, makes them dependent on the money and position. Then slowly, you're covering for him, making excuses, becoming part of the machine you wanted to fix. That won't happen. That's what I said 18 months ago, Chris replied. Look, I'm not telling you to turn down the job. I'm telling you to go in with your eyes open. Adrian Balboa is a deeply wounded man, and wounded people are dangerous, especially when they have power. After they hung up, Tyler sat in the darkness of his apartment, staring at the job offer. His phone buzzed one more time. Adrian, forgot to mention, there's someone I'd like you to meet tomorrow. My business partner and lead investor. He's very interested in my plans for restructuring. 4:30 p.m. Tyler's hands started shaking. Something about that message felt wrong, felt like a door closing, like a choice being made before he was ready to make it. He looked at the therapy card, at his mother's missed calls, at the job offer that could change everything or trap him forever. For the first time in 3 years, Tyler felt truly afraid. Comment, don't take it, or take the job, and subscribe because the next part reveals a truth that shatters everything. Tyler didn't sleep that night. At 3 a.m., he finally gave up, threw on his jacket, and walked the empty city streets until dawn broke over the skyline. By the time he reached the restaurant for his shift, he'd made a decision. He was going to that 4:30 meeting, but not because he was accepting the job, because he needed to understand exactly what he was walking away from. The morning shift passed in a blur. Sophie tried to catch him for coffee, but he begged off, claiming he needed to prep for the meeting. She looked hurt, but didn't push. At 4:25 p.m., Tyler stood outside Adrian's office, the job offer folder in his hands, still unsigned. He could hear voices inside, Adrian's measured tone and another voice, deeper, with a faint accent Tyler couldn't place. He knocked. Come in, Tyler, Adrian called. The office felt different with 3 people in it. Adrian sat behind his desk, but the man in the guest chair commanded the room. He was perhaps 60, silver-haired, wearing a suit that probably cost more than Tyler made in 6 months. His eyes were sharp, calculating, and completely devoid of warmth. "Tyler Durden," the man said, standing and extending his hand. "Vincent Corleone. I'm Adrian's primary investor and business partner." Tyler shook his hand, feeling like he'd just grabbed a snake. "Mr. Corleone owns 40% of the Balboa Luxury Dining Group," Adrian explained. "Every major decision goes through him. And Adrian's told me quite a bit about you," Vincent said, settling back into his chair. "The dishwasher who saved Friday's service. The man who made our temperamental chef cry." He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Fascinating trajectory. Tyler remained standing. "Mr. Balboa offered me a position. I'm here to discuss terms." "Ah, direct. I like that." Vincent gestured to the remaining chair. "Please sit. Let's talk about what this position really means." Tyler sat, every nerve on high alert. "Adrian wants to restructure," Vincent continued. "Soften his image, improve staff retention, create a more sustainable work environment." He said the word sustainable like it tasted bitter. "Noble goals. But they come with risks." "What kind of risks?" Tyler asked. "The risk of appearing weak," Vincent said simply. "Our brand is built on excellence, perfection, uncompromising standards. Adrian Balboa is known as the chef who accepts nothing less than the best. That reputation drives our success. Our high prices, our exclusivity, our appeal to clients who want to say they survived dining at a Balboa restaurant." Tyler glanced at Adrian, who was staring at his desk. "If we suddenly become nice," Vincent continued, "if we start coddling staff and lowering standards, we risk losing what makes us special. Do you understand?" "I understand what you're saying," Tyler said carefully. "I don't agree with it." Vincent's smile widened. "Good. That's why you're here. Adrian needs someone who'll push back, keep him grounded, help him find the balance between reform and maintaining our edge." He leaned forward. "The question is, are you that person? Can you help Adrian change without letting him become soft?" Tyler felt the trap closing. This wasn't about reform at all. This was about finding someone to manage Adrian's image while keeping the machine running exactly as it always had. "What happened to the line cook who sued 2 years ago?" Tyler asked. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. Vincent's expression didn't change, but his eyes sharpened. "I see you've been doing research," Vincent said. "That situation was unfortunate. A disgruntled employee making false accusations, attempting to extort money from a successful business. We handled it. By destroying her career? By protecting our investment," Vincent corrected. "The restaurant industry is brutal, Mr. Durden. Only the strong survive. We make sure our people survive." Tyler stood abruptly. "I need to speak with Mr. Balboa." "Alone?" Vincent looked at Adrian, who nodded slightly. "Give us a moment, Vincent." The investor stood, straightening his tie. "Of course. I'll be in the bar. Take your time." He paused at the door. "But remember, Tyler, loyalty is everything in this business. Choose your allegiances carefully." When the door closed, Tyler turned on Adrian. "This is what you meant by change? Hiring me to be your PR buffer while your investor threatens anyone who pushes back? It's not that simple." "It's exactly that simple." Tyler's voice rose. "You told me you wanted to be better, to fix what's broken. But you're still letting Vincent pull the strings. Still letting fear of appearing weak dictate how you treat people." Adrian stood, his face flushed. "You don't understand the pressure I'm under. Vincent owns 40%. And you own 60. Tyler shot back. "You have controlling interest. You could make real changes if you had the courage to stand up to him. But you won't, because you're more afraid of losing your empire than of losing your humanity. That's not fair, isn't it?" Tyler threw the unsigned job offer on the desk. "You asked me what changed on Friday. Why I stepped forward after 8 months of silence. You want to know the truth?" Adrian went still. "I got a call from my mom that morning," Tyler said, his voice breaking. "The first time we'd really talked in 3 years. She told me she'd started going to therapy, working through her grief over Mara. She said she'd wasted 3 years being angry and numb, and she didn't want to waste another day. She asked me when I was going to stop running." Tyler's hands clenched into fists. "And I realized I'd been using my grief as an excuse to hide, to be small, to never risk anything because risk meant possible pain. But watching you Friday, seeing you about to lose everything because you're too afraid to be vulnerable. I couldn't let that happen. Because if I did, I'd be exactly what I've accused you of being. A coward. Adrian's eyes were wet. So here's my counteroffer, Tyler said. I'll take the job on one condition. You fire Vincent Corleone as your investor. Buy out his shares, take on debt if you have to, but cut him loose. Because as long as he's pulling strings, nothing will really change. You'll just have better PR while the same poison runs through everything you've built. That's impossible, Adrian whispered. He'll destroy me. Maybe, Tyler said. Or maybe you'll finally find out what you're actually made of when you stop letting other people define your worth. He headed for the door. Tyler, wait. Tyler turned back. I'm going to my therapy appointment on Thursday. After 3 years of running. If you want to talk about real change, about actually rebuilding this place into something good, call me after that. Otherwise, I'm done. He walked out, past Vincent in the bar, past Sophie's concerned face in the kitchen, out into the evening air. His hands were shaking, but for the first time in years, it wasn't from fear. It was from hope. Drop a yes if you're proud of Tyler right now. And subscribe. The finale is going to blow your mind. Thursday arrived like a storm on the horizon, inevitable and terrifying. Tyler sat in the therapist's waiting room, his leg bouncing nervously. He'd almost canceled twice that morning. Once while brushing his teeth, again while putting on his jacket. But he'd thought of his mother's voice, of Adrian's tears, of Mara's face, and he'd forced himself out the door. Dr. Sarah Chun was younger than he expected, with kind eyes and a calm presence that made the office feel safe rather than clinical. I haven't done this before, Tyler said, sitting on the edge of the couch. I mean, I've tried. 3 times. Never made it past the first session. You made it today, Dr. Chin said simply. That's what matters. Why don't you tell me why you're here? And somehow, impossibly, Tyler did. He told her about Mara. Really told her, not just the facts but the feelings. The guilt that lived in his chest like a stone. The way he dismantled his entire life piece by piece because he didn't know how to exist in a world where his sister didn't. The 3 years of running, hiding, disappearing into dish pits and silence. He told her about Adrian, about Friday night, about the choice he'd made to walk away from the money and the safety because he'd finally understood that survival wasn't the same as living. When he finished, his face was wet with tears he hadn't known he was crying. Tyler, Dr. Chun said gently, you've been carrying your sister's death like it was your responsibility. Like you could have prevented it if only you'd been different, done more, seen clearer. But grief doesn't work that way. Addiction doesn't work that way. You didn't fail Mara. You loved her. Those are 2 very different things. The words cracked something open inside him, something that had been locked tight for 3 years. I miss her so much, Tyler whispered. I know, and you always will. But missing her doesn't mean you have to stop living. She wouldn't want that for you. Tyler nodded, unable to speak. When he left the office an hour later, the world looked different. Not fixed. He wasn't naive enough to think one session solved everything. But lighter, somehow. Like he'd set down a weight he'd been carrying so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. His phone showed 7 missed calls. 3 from Sophie, 2 from his mother, 1 from an unknown number, and 1 from Adrian Balboa. The voicemail was short. I did it. I need to talk to you. Please. Tyler found Adrian at the restaurant at 10 p.m., long after closing. The CEO sat alone in the dark dining room, a single bottle of wine on the table in front of him. You came, Adrian said, looking up. I got your message. Tyler sat across from him. What did you do? Adrian poured wine into a second glass, slid it across to Tyler. I bought out Vincent's shares, liquidated my personal investments, took out a loan that'll take me 10 years to pay off, and told him I was done being afraid of him. Tyler's eyes widened. What did he say? That I was making the biggest mistake of my life. That I'd regret this. That the restaurant industry would chew me up and spit me out without his protection. Adrian laughed, hollow and tired. Then he threatened to sue me for breach of contract. My lawyers say he doesn't have a case, but he'll try anyway. It'll cost me more money I don't have. Adrian. But I don't care, Adrian interrupted, meeting Tyler's eyes. For the first time in 2 years, I actually don't care. Because I'm not doing this for him anymore. I'm not building something I hate for someone else's profit. I'm going to rebuild this place the right way, even if it destroys me financially. Even if I lose everything. Tyler picked up the wine glass, but didn't drink. That's terrifying. It's the most terrified I've been in my life, Adrian admitted. I called Elena yesterday, my ex-wife. First time we've spoken in 18 months. I told her what I was doing. I apologized for everything. For missing Isabella's birth, for choosing work over her, for being too broken to be the partner she deserved. What did she say? She said it was too late for us. That ship had sailed. Adrian's voice cracked. But she also said she was proud of me, that she hoped I'd finally find peace, and that if I ever had another daughter, I should name her something strong, something that meant hope. They sat in silence for a moment, two broken men trying to figure out how to build something better from the rubble of their mistakes. I called Chris, Adrian said finally. My former sous chef. Apologized. Offered him his position back with full control of the kitchen operations and a 20% raise. He starts Monday. And Robert. Called him too. And Emma, the chef I fired that night. And the pastry chef from 3 months ago. I'm calling everyone I can remember, everyone I hurt. Most won't come back, and I don't blame them. But I'm trying. I'm actually trying. Tyler felt something unfamiliar bloom in his chest, something that felt dangerously close to pride. I also want you to take the general manager position, Adrian said. But not the way Vincent wanted. I want you to help me build something different. A restaurant group that proves you can have high standards without destroying people. Excellence without cruelty. Success without sacrifice. That's a lot to ask, Tyler said. I know. And I can't pay you what I offered before, not with the debt I'm carrying. It'll be half that salary, longer hours, and no guarantee we'll succeed. We might crash and burn spectacularly. Adrian looked at him steadily. But it'll be honest work. Building something that matters. Giving people second chances, including ourselves. Tyler thought about Dr. Chen's words. About living versus surviving. About the person he used to be before grief made him small, and the person he might become if he was brave enough to try. I have conditions, Tyler said. Name them. First, mandatory mental health days for all staff. No questions asked. Second, a zero-tolerance policy for verbal abuse, you included. You slip up, there are consequences. Third, we create a fund for employees dealing with addiction or mental health crises. In Mara's name. Adrian's eyes filled with tears. Done. All of it. Tyler extended his hand across the table. Then let's build something worth keeping. Adrian shook it, gripping tight like a drowning man finally finding solid ground. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, two broken men made a promise to be better. And for the first time in years, both of them believed it might actually be possible. Comment your favorite moments so far. And if you haven't subscribed, now's the time. The conclusion will leave you inspired. Thursday arrived like a storm on the horizon, inevitable and terrifying. Tyler sat in the therapist's waiting room, his leg bouncing nervously. He'd almost canceled twice that morning. Once while brushing his teeth, again while putting on his jacket. But he'd thought of his mother's voice, of Adrian's tears, of Mara's face, and he'd forced himself out the door. Dr. Sarah Chun was younger than he expected, with kind eyes and a calm presence that made the office feel safe rather than clinical. I haven't done this before, Tyler said, sitting on the edge of the couch. I mean, I've tried. 3 times. Never made it past the first session. You made it today, Dr. Chin said simply. That's what matters. Why don't you tell me why you're here? And somehow, impossibly, Tyler did. He told her about Mara. Really told her, not just the facts but the feelings. The guilt that lived in his chest like a stone. The way he dismantled his entire life piece by piece because he didn't know how to exist in a world where his sister didn't. The 3 years of running, hiding, disappearing into dish pits and silence. He told her about Adrian, about Friday night, about the choice he'd made to walk away from the money and the safety because he'd finally understood that survival wasn't the same as living. When he finished, his face was wet with tears he hadn't known he was crying. Tyler, Dr. Chun said gently, you've been carrying your sister's death like it was your responsibility. Like you could have prevented it if only you'd been different, done more, seen clearer. But grief doesn't work that way. Addiction doesn't work that way. You didn't fail Mara. You loved her. Those are 2 very different things. The words cracked something open inside him, something that had been locked tight for 3 years. I miss her so much, Tyler whispered. I know, and you always will. But missing her doesn't mean you have to stop living. She wouldn't want that for you. Tyler nodded, unable to speak. When he left the office an hour later, the world looked different. Not fixed. He wasn't naive enough to think one session solved everything. But lighter, somehow. Like he'd set down a weight he'd been carrying so long he'd forgotten what it felt like to stand up straight. His phone showed 7 missed calls. 3 from Sophie, 2 from his mother, 1 from an unknown number, and 1 from Adrian Balboa. The voicemail was short. I did it. I need to talk to you. Please. Tyler found Adrian at the restaurant at 10 p.m., long after closing. The CEO sat alone in the dark dining room, a single bottle of wine on the table in front of him. You came, Adrian said, looking up. I got your message. Tyler sat across from him. What did you do? Adrian poured wine into a second glass, slid it across to Tyler. I bought out Vincent's shares, liquidated my personal investments, took out a loan that'll take me 10 years to pay off, and told him I was done being afraid of him. Tyler's eyes widened. What did he say? That I was making the biggest mistake of my life. That I'd regret this. That the restaurant industry would chew me up and spit me out without his protection. Adrian laughed, hollow and tired. Then he threatened to sue me for breach of contract. My lawyers say he doesn't have a case, but he'll try anyway. It'll cost me more money I don't have. Adrian. But I don't care, Adrian interrupted, meeting Tyler's eyes. For the first time in 2 years, I actually don't care. Because I'm not doing this for him anymore. I'm not building something I hate for someone else's profit. I'm going to rebuild this place the right way, even if it destroys me financially. Even if I lose everything. Tyler picked up the wine glass, but didn't drink. That's terrifying. It's the most terrified I've been in my life, Adrian admitted. I called Elena yesterday. My ex-wife. First time we've spoken in 18 months. I told her what I was doing. I apologized for everything. For missing Isabella's birth, for choosing work over her, for being too broken to be the partner she deserved. What did she say? She said it was too late for us. That ship had sailed. Adrian's voice cracked. But she also said she was proud of me. That she hoped I'd finally find peace. And that if I ever had another daughter, I should name her something strong. Something that meant hope. They sat in silence for a moment. 2 broken men trying to figure out how to build something better from the rubble of their mistakes. I called Chris, Adrian said finally. My former sous chef. Apologized. Offered him his position back with full control of the kitchen operations and a 20% raise. He starts Monday. And Robert. Called him too. And Emma, the chef I fired that night. And the pastry chef from 3 months ago. I'm calling everyone I can remember, everyone I hurt. Most won't come back, and I don't blame them. But I'm trying. I'm actually trying. Tyler felt something unfamiliar bloom in his chest, something that felt dangerously close to pride. I also want you to take the general manager position, Adrian said. But not the way Vincent wanted. I want you to help me build something different. A restaurant group that proves you can have high standards without destroying people. Excellence without cruelty. Success without sacrifice. That's a lot to ask, Tyler said. I know. And I can't pay you what I offered before, not with the debt I'm carrying. It'll be half that salary, longer hours, and no guarantee we'll succeed. We might crash and burn spectacularly. Adrian looked at him steadily. But it'll be honest work. Building something that matters. Giving people second chances, including ourselves. Tyler thought about Dr. Chen's words. About living versus surviving. About the person he used to be before grief made him small, and the person he might become if he was brave enough to try. I have conditions, Tyler said. Name them. First, mandatory mental health days for all staff. No questions asked. Second, a zero-tolerance policy for verbal abuse, you included. You slip up, there are consequences. Third, we create a fund for employees dealing with addiction or mental health crises. In Mara's name. Adrian's eyes filled with tears. Done. All of it. Tyler extended his hand across the table. Then let's build something worth keeping. Adrian shook it, gripping tight like a drowning man finally finding solid ground. Outside, the city hummed with life. Inside, 2 broken men made a promise to be better. And for the first time in years, both of them believed it might actually be possible. Comment your favorite moments so far. And if you haven't subscribed, now's the time. The conclusion will leave you inspired.